Have you noticed how, in life, the very moment you think things are finally going your way, something unexpected happens? You're climbing steadily, you've invested your effort, your time, your energy, and suddenly, it feels like the rug has been pulled out from under you. A rejection letter arrives, a project collapses, a relationship ends, and in that moment, it's tempting to think, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the sign I should just stop trying. But here's the question you need to wrestle with. What if the setback isn't the conclusion of your story? What if it's the chapter that prepares you for the real transformation? Because setbacks are not final, and failure, though it hurts, may be the most honest teacher you'll ever meet. Think about history. Every person who made a significant contribution faced more failures than successes in the beginning. Thomas Edison tested thousands of filaments before creating a single light bulb that worked. Thousands of attempts that didn't light up the room. Did those attempts mean he was failing, or did they mean he was moving closer each time to the right solution? It depends entirely on how you frame it. If you say, I failed 1,000 times, then yes, you carry that weight. But if you say, I discovered 1,000 ways that didn't work, suddenly you realize you're mapping the terrain of success. You're creating a blueprint through failure itself. Now, most people never reach this level of insight. Why? Because they mistake temporary defeat for permanent failure. They think the roadblock is the end of the road, but if you really examine it, what is a setback? It's not the conclusion, it's an interruption. It's life's way of testing whether you are serious about the thing you say you want. If the slightest rejection or obstacle can stop you, then maybe you weren't committed in the first place. But if you're willing to push through, if you say to yourself, this is not where it ends, then the setback becomes a stepping stone. It transforms into a training ground, and here's something that's very important to understand. Growth often hides inside the things you resist most. Think about it. When you go to the gym, what builds strength? It's resistance. The weight pushes against you. It challenges you. And it's precisely that push, that struggle, that creates the muscle you're after. Life functions in the same way. Your challenges are not signs of failure. They are weights designed to build the strength you'll need for the success that's ahead. If you remove the resistance, if you skip the struggle, you rob yourself of the strength required to hold on to success when it finally comes. So the first key truth is simple, but not easy. Don't confuse setbacks with endings. They're not the same thing. The fact that you're struggling does not mean you're failing. It means you're in training. You're being prepared, you're being refined, and every time you're knocked down but refuse to stay down, you're proving something to yourself that no one can ever take away. You are capable of rising again and again. Now, let's move forward, because it's not enough to just survive setbacks. That's only part of the process. The real question is, how do you keep going when the results don't show up right away? This brings us into the second truth, the power of perseverance. Perseverance is not glamorous. It's not exciting. It doesn't make headlines. People don't applaud the long nights you spend working quietly, the mornings you wake up tired but still show up, the hours you dedicate to something that nobody else even notices. Perseverance is invisible in the moment. But what you need to understand is this. Every act of perseverance is a seed. It doesn't sprout instantly. It doesn't bloom the moment you plant it. But if you keep watering it, if you protect it, if you give it time, it will grow. The problem is, most people stop watering too soon. They put in the effort, they show up for a few weeks, maybe a few months, but then the results don't match the effort and they walk away. And the tragedy is, they walk away just before the seed was about to break the surface. You know the story of the Chinese bamboo tree. For the first 4 years you water it, you nurture it, you give it sunlight, and nothing happens, absolutely nothing. The soil looks barren, no signs of growth. Then in the 5th year, it shoots up to nearly 90 feet tall in just 6 weeks. But here's the question, did it grow in 6 weeks, or did it grow in 5 years? It grew in 5 years. Because without those unseen years of consistent effort, the roots would never have formed strong enough to support the sudden growth. Perseverance is like that. You don't always see the results right away, but beneath the surface, roots are forming. Foundations are being laid. Now let's bring this into your life. Maybe you're studying for an exam. You've been poring over the same concepts day after day, and it feels like nothing is sticking. But then one day something clicks. Suddenly the patterns emerge, the connections make sense. Was that one break through moment the result of that day alone? No. It was the accumulation of every previous day you thought was wasted. Or think about someone learning a new skill, playing an instrument, coding, writing, speaking. At first, everything is awkward. You stumble, you fail, you make mistakes. But if you stick with it, if you persist through the awkwardness, there comes a point where fluency begins to appear. And once again, it wasn't magic. It was perseverance. Here's the mistake so many people make. They overestimate what they can achieve in a short time, and they underestimate what they can achieve with consistent effort over a long time. They want quick results, instant recognition, immediate payoff. And when that doesn't happen, they quit. But the reality is, mastery is built slowly through repetition, through patience, through the stubborn decision to keep showing up. And perseverance is not just about action, it's also about mindset. Because when you persevere, you're not only building results, you're building identity. Every time you show up despite fatigue, you're telling yourself, I am the kind of person who does not give up. And that belief, rooted in action, becomes the anchor that holds you steady when storms come. Perseverance is character in motion. It's discipline given form, and here's the deeper truth. The effort you think no one sees is the effort that shapes you most profoundly, because it's in those quiet, unseen hours that resilience is forged. But perseverance is also a paradox. It demands that you keep going even when you don't feel like it. And let's be honest, you won't always feel like it. Motivation will fade. Excitement will fade. There will be days when the very idea of pushing forward feels unbearable. That's where discipline enters. Motivation is fleeting, but discipline is steady. Discipline says, I don't care how I feel, I care about what I value. And when you live by discipline, perseverance becomes natural because you no longer depend on moods or feelings, you depend on principles. And isn't it interesting that the very moments you don't feel like showing up are often the most important moments to show up? Because those are the days that test whether your commitment is real. Anyone can act when they feel inspired. But it's the person who acts when they feel uninspired who builds true resilience. And that resilience, that capacity to keep going, is what separates those who merely dream from those who achieve. So perseverance is not just about doing, it's about becoming. It's about becoming the kind of person who refuses to be broken by delay, who refuses to let discouragement dictate destiny. And when you live like that, something remarkable happens. Life begins to reward you in ways you couldn't have predicted. Opportunities appear, doors open, breakthroughs arrive, not because you were lucky, but because you were consistent, because you stayed the course long enough for the seeds to grow. When you really stop to think about it, there's something profoundly paradoxical about struggle. On the surface, it looks like an enemy. It feels like punishment. You encounter hardship, and your first reaction is almost always resistance. Why me? Why now? Why can't this be easier? But if you dig deeper, if you take an honest look at the human experience, you begin to notice something extraordinary. The very thing that feels like it's breaking you is often the thing that's making you stronger. The struggle itself is not meaningless. It is shaping you in ways comfort never could. Let's be clear about this. No one grows in the absence of resistance. If life hands you everything you want, if the road is smooth, if there are no obstacles, you may feel comfortable, you may even feel happy for a while, but you won't grow. Growth is born in friction. It emerges in the tension between who you are now and who you're called to become. And struggle is the crucible where that transformation occurs. Think of it this way. A seed cannot become a tree without first breaking apart. That breaking, that cracking open is painful. If a seed could feel, it would probably describe the process as unbearable, but only by breaking does it allow something greater to emerge. In the same way, you are called to break through the limits of your current self, and struggle is the mechanism by which that happens. Consider the scientific fact about how muscles are built. When you lift weights, you're actually tearing the muscle fibers. Micro tears, it sounds destructive, doesn't it? But what happens next? The body repairs those fibers, and in repairing them, it strengthens them. They grow back larger, more resilient. Without that tearing, no growth would occur. And life functions on this same principle. Struggle tears at you, but in the healing, in the rebuilding, you become stronger, wiser, more resilient. Now let me ask you something directly. When you look back at your life, at the moments that shaped you most, were they the easy moments? Or were they the times when you were pressed against the wall, when you thought you couldn't go any further, when life demanded more of you than you thought you had to give? Those moments, though painful, carved depth into your character. They forged resilience. They taught you lessons that ease never could. There's a danger, though, that many fall into. They misinterpret struggle as proof that they're not cut out for success. They think, if it's this hard, maybe it wasn't meant for me. But what if the opposite is true? What if the fact that it's hard is the very proof that it's shaping you into someone who is meant to carry that success? Because here's the reality. Success is not just about reaching a destination. It's about having the capacity to sustain it once you arrive. And if you gain success without the struggle, you won't have the strength to keep it. That's why people who take shortcuts often crumble. They skipped the refining fire, so when the weight of success arrived, they weren't ready to hold it. This is why you must begin to see struggle as training. Imagine you're preparing for a marathon. You don't run 6 miles on the first day. You build up to it through soreness, through exhaustion, through days when every step feels unbearable. But it's precisely those painful miles that prepare your body to endure the race. Struggle works in the same way. It conditions you for the long run. And isn't it fascinating that the things you're most proud of in life are almost always tied to the struggles you endured to achieve them? A degree earned after sleepless nights of study. A business built after countless setbacks and risks. A relationship restored after painful honesty and hard work. If it had been easy, it wouldn't carry the same weight, the same meaning. Struggle adds value to the achievement because it demands that you invest part of yourself into it. There's also a psychological dimension here worth exploring. Struggle introduces you to yourself. It reveals who you really are beneath the surface. When everything is comfortable, when nothing challenges you, you don't truly know the depths of your character. But put yourself in a situation where you're under pressure, where you're tested, and suddenly your true nature emerges. Are you resilient or fragile? Are you adaptable or rigid? Do you panic or do you persist? Struggle doesn't create those qualities out of nowhere. It exposes them, and in exposing them, it gives you the chance to develop them. This is why some of the wisest people you'll ever meet carry scars. They've suffered, yes, but they've also integrated that suffering into wisdom. They've wrestled with pain, with loss, with failure, and instead of letting it destroy them, they used it as raw material to build something deeper. And that's something you need to take seriously. Your struggles can either break you or build you. The difference lies in how you interpret them. Now, let's consider another angle. Think about the concept of resilience in nature. A tree that grows in a sheltered greenhouse with perfect conditions never develops the strength to withstand storms. But a tree exposed to wind, to rain, to unpredictable conditions develops roots that go deep, branches that are flexible yet strong. That tree survives, even thrives in adversity. Humans are the same. You don't develop resilience by living in a greenhouse. You develop it by facing the storms of life and refusing to bend to the point of breaking. And here's something else. Struggle has the power to connect you with others in a way comfort never could. When you've suffered, when you've endured hardship, you develop empathy. You can look at someone else in pain and say, I know what that feels like. That kind of connection is invaluable. It makes you human in the deepest sense. It allows you to contribute to the healing of others because you've walked the path yourself. But let me press a little further here because there's a danger in avoiding struggle. If you spend your life running from difficulty, what happens? You shrink. You become smaller than you could be. You trade potential for comfort. And the tragedy is, you never discover what you were actually capable of. The only way to find out how strong you can be is to face what feels unbearable, and endure it anyway. Avoidance keeps you safe, yes, but it also keeps you weak. And weakness, in the long run, costs far more than the pain of struggle. This is why so many philosophies, so many great teachings across cultures, emphasize the role of suffering in human development. Not because suffering is good in itself, but because of what it produces when you engage with it properly. It can purify, it can strengthen, it can humble, it can transform, but only if you face it honestly instead of running from it or numbing yourself to it. So, let's bring this back to you. What struggle are you facing right now that you've been trying to escape? What difficulty feels overwhelming to the point where you just want it to end? What if, instead of seeing it as a curse, you began to see it as a classroom? What if you asked yourself, what is this struggle teaching me? What skill, what strength, what resilience am I being forced to develop right now? If you can frame your struggle this way, you take back power. You stop being a victim of it, and you start becoming a student of it. And remember, the greatest victories are not the ones handed to you. They are the ones earned through struggle. They are the moments you thought you couldn't go on, but did anyway. They are the nights you spent in tears, but woke up and faced the day regardless. They are the times you stumbled, but stood up again. That's where strength is born, not in the absence of pain, but in the perseverance through it. When you understand this, you stop resenting the struggle. You begin to respect it. You see it as an ally, unwelcome at times, uncomfortable always, but necessary nonetheless. Because it's the struggle that chisels away the weakness, that sharpens your edges, that reveals the warrior hidden inside you. And if you can embrace that reality, if you can learn to endure and even appreciate the refining fire of struggle, then you'll begin to see yourself changing, not just in what you achieve, but in who you become.